He walked quietly across the lobby, head bowed low, pushing the janitor's cart as if apologizing. Just for existing. In a skyscraper built of glass and ambition, where million-dollar contracts were signed behind soundproof doors, there was a man nobody noticed, a man invisible in a world of brilliance. And yet, it was him, Jordan Blackwell, who did the impossible. Because the little girl everyone in the building feared, the daughter of billionaire Eleanor Pierce, was untouchable. That girl, Tessa Pierce, had once been the smile of the entire empire. Now, there was only silence. 8 nannies had come and gone. Therapists had given up. She screamed when treated with kindness, cried when anyone touched her, and locked her heart behind invisible walls. Until one seemingly ordinary afternoon. Jordan was mopping the marble floor near the elevators when he heard a soft sob behind a column. He stopped, set the mop aside, and walked closer. Then he knelt down, slowly, carefully, as if afraid to break something fragile. From the pocket of his shirt, he took out a small object, something that looked ordinary, but somehow made the whole world stand still for a few seconds. And then, miraculously, the girl stopped crying. No one in the company knew what had just happened. No one knew that the man pushing the cleaning cart had once been a wonderful father, until he lost everything. And Eleanor Pierce, the powerful woman she was about to witness something that would change her life forever. If you believe that small acts of kindness can save an entire world, hit subscribe so you won't miss the next part of the story. Because tell me, a man who's lost everything, can he really save a child who's losing herself? On the 30th floor of Pierce Global Dynamics, in the heart of Manhattan, the glass walls reflected the light of the entire city below. In a silence so deep she could hear her own heartbeat, Eleanor Pierce stood motionless, eyes fixed on her computer screen. On it was the 9th psychological report about her daughter, Isabel. Patient completely rejects strangers. Severe PTSD symptoms. No response to cognitive behavioral therapy. No response to play therapy. Psychiatric intervention recommended. Suggestion: short-term hospitalization. Eleanor slowly closed the laptop. Number: not again. At 41, the CEO of a $3.2 billion biotech empire, a woman who commanded 2,000 employees, negotiated with governments, and made decisions that affected millions of lives, now stood powerless before a 7-year-old child. Since the day Richard Pierce, her husband, her daughter's father, and the family's anchor, died in a plane crash 3 months ago, Isabel had become a shadow of herself. Those eyes, only 7 years old, carried a hollowness most adults would never dare to face. 3 months earlier, Isabel had been the light of this office. She ran into her mother's room holding a drawing made with crayons. "Mom! Look, I drew us. 3 people. You, Daddy, and me." Richard laughed, lifted his daughter into his arms, and spun her around. "Do you know your mom is the smartest woman in the world?" "I know," Isabel giggled, "but Daddy's the best." Their laughter filled the room back then. Now only the hum of the air conditioner remained, and the cold scent of printer paper. The framed photos still sat neatly on the shelf, but the life inside them was gone. Eleanor opened the special room designed just for Isabel, filled with toys, sketchbooks, warm lights, and cameras in every corner. In the far corner, Isabel sat curled up, clutching an old doll, the last gift from her father. "Isabel, sweetheart," Eleanor knelt down, trying to keep her voice calm. "Today we're going to meet a new doctor. She's very nice. No! The scream tore through the room. I don't want any doctors. I want Daddy back. The doll flew across the room and hit the door. Eleanor froze, her hands trembling. A woman who could run a global empire didn't know how to hold her own daughter. The child had built a wall around herself, and no matter how powerful Eleanor Pierce was, she couldn't find the door in. For 3 months, she had tried everything. The first nanny, Mrs. Martha, with 25 years of experience, quit after 4 days, when Isabel locked her out on the balcony for 2 hours. The second, Lisa, a specialist in caring for children with special needs, left after 6 days, when she woke up to find a handful of her hair had been cut off. From the third to the 8th nanny, none lasted more than a week. And the therapists? Dr. Morrison from Yale. Isabel stayed silent through 5 sessions. Dr. Chen, a PTSD expert. Isabel screamed until she turned blue the moment she walked in. Every professional after that wrote the same line in their reports. This child needs time. Or a miracle. But Eleanor Pierce no longer believed in miracles. Her phone rang. The voice of the HR director came through, cautious yet tense. Mrs. Pierce, the board is becoming concerned about your personal situation. Your recent absences from meetings could affect— I know, Eleanor cut her off. I'll handle it. But the truth was, she didn't know where to start. 3 flights canceled. 2 key contracts rejected. Company stock down more than 12%. And investors had started asking, is this CEO still capable of running her company? Yet the woman who once controlled the world was losing the one thing she could never replace: her daughter. That night, Eleanor sat alone in her office. Outside, the city gleamed like molten gold reflected on the cold glass. On her desk lay an old folder, wedding photos of her and Richard, pictures of baby Isabel, snapshots from their summer trip to Italy last year. Richard's voice echoed in her memory, deep, warm, gentle, like a distant melody. You know, Eleanor, you can be better than anyone else, but what I love most about you is how you love Isabel, without ever needing to prove it. She smiled faintly, a trembling smile, like a crack in flawless glass. Because now she was failing at both, being a great CEO and being a whole mother. When the first tear in 3 months fell onto the desk, the lights of Manhattan shimmered in her eyes, as if the entire city were crying with Eleanor Pierce. 6 a.m. The old apartment complex in Queens still lay shrouded in damp, cold darkness. The alarm had rung at 5:30. Jordan Blackwell shut it off and sat up without turning on the light. He was used to the dark. It had been his only loyal companion for years. 38 years old, but he looked at least 10 years older. Silver streaks touched both temples. His deep brown eyes held lines etched by sleepless nights and long years of loneliness. He walked into the next room, a small, empty space, just a single bed, a desk, and photos taped to the wall. Pictures of a little boy, straw blonde hair, a missing front tooth, blue eyes clear as the June sky. Ethan. Jordan stood still for a few seconds, as if reluctant to leave. Every morning he stopped before the largest photo, Ethan smiling, hugging a stuffed dog. "Good night, my little boy," he whispered, even though the sun was just rising. Then he quietly closed the door, carrying that familiar weight in his chest, a heaviness that had never gone away. 6 years earlier, the small apartment had once been full of laughter. "Daddy! Look, I built a castle!" 5-year-old Ethan sat in the middle of the floor, surrounded by a riot of colorful Lego bricks. The castle leaned slightly, ready to topple, but in his eyes, it was a whole kingdom. Jordan knelt down, smiling, and pulled his son into his arms. "It's beautiful. My boy's a genius architect. You mean it, Dad?" "I mean it. You can be anything you want. Then I'll build a castle for you to live in." "For me? Why's that?" "Because you deserve it. You're the best dad in the world." Jordan said nothing more. He just hugged his son tightly, fighting back tears. He didn't know it would be the last time he heard that laugh. Now, in the packed subway car, Jordan sat silently in a corner, wearing his navy blue janitor uniform. The Clean Corp Solutions logo on his chest was frayed. Around him, everyone stared at their phones. No one looked at anyone else. He opened his worn canvas bag, a cold lunchbox, an apple, a small notebook, and a cloth pouch. Inside that pouch was his whole world. Handmade toys, a patched teddy bear, a felt rabbit, a tiny wooden car. Clumsy, imperfect. But every stitch and every carved edge carried the warmth of something money could never buy. Once, Jordan had been a preschool teacher at a small private school in Brooklyn. He loved that job. Loved the children. Loved how they saw the world through clear, innocent eyes. He was married to Sarah, a nurse at a children's hospital. They had Ethan, and though life was modest, their little home overflowed with laughter. Each night, when Sarah worked the night shift, Jordan would tell Ethan bedtime stories, not from books, but from his imagination. Once upon a time, there was a rabbit who couldn't hop. All the other rabbits laughed at him, but he didn't give up. He practiced every day, and one day he jumped higher than all the rest. Ethan tilted his head. "Dad, why didn't the rabbit give up?" "Because he knew a secret." "What secret?" "That what makes us special isn't what we're good at. It's that we never give up on our dreams." Ethan nodded, eyes sparkling. "Then I'll never give up either." Jordan laughed, ruffling his son's hair. He didn't know that was the last night he'd ever tell Ethan a story. The accident happened on a fall afternoon, leaves scattering across the road. Sarah was driving Ethan home from school. A truck lost control. A devastating crash at an intersection. Sarah survived, with wounds that would never truly heal. Ethan didn't. Jordan got the call while teaching. He bolted out of the classroom, ran like a madman to the hospital. His heart pounded like it was about to burst. When the doctor stepped out, one look in those sorrowful eyes told him everything. Jordan collapsed to the floor, screaming soundlessly. Sarah never forgave herself. "It's my fault. I wasn't paying attention. I killed our son." "No, Sarah," Jordan said, holding her trembling hand. "It was an accident." "No, I should have died instead." They tried to go on, but the little house was no longer a home. Every room was a nightmare. Jordan couldn't step into Ethan's room. Sarah couldn't bear to look at family photos. 6 months later, he woke to find a letter on the kitchen table. "Dear Jordan, I can't live with this pain anymore. Every day I see Ethan's face, hear his laughter, then realize it's just in my head. I'm not as strong as you. I'm sorry. I love you. But I have to go. Sarah." She left that night and never came back. Jordan searched everywhere, hospitals, relatives' homes, even mental health centers, but Sarah had vanished as if she'd never existed. He lost his son, then his wife, and after that, he slowly began to lose himself. He couldn't return to teaching. He couldn't look at children without seeing Ethan's face among them. He quit, sold the apartment, moved to Queens. In the years that followed, Jordan did everything: waiter, driver, mover, whatever paid the bills, until he found a job at Clean Corp, an outsourced janitorial company for corporate buildings. When the manager asked why he wanted the job, he answered simply, "Because no one notices the janitor." And I don't want to be seen anymore. But there was one thing Jordan never gave up. Every night after work, he sat alone under the weak yellow light, stitching scraps of old fabric, carving bits of wood, making toys, the way he once did for Ethan. A teddy bear from an old shirt, a rabbit from worn felt, a wooden car from popsicle sticks. He didn't know why he still did it. Maybe because when those little things took shape, he felt Ethan was still there, smiling, running, calling out, "Daddy!" just like before. And sometimes, in dreams, he could still hear his son's voice. "Dad, you make the best toys." Each time that happened, he'd smile through his tears, because that tiny echo of love, was the only reason he was still alive. Wednesday afternoon. The Pierce Global Dynamics building shimmered under the fading sunlight. Jordan Blackwell had been working there for 2 months. He arrived before 6 every morning, quietly mopping floors, emptying trash cans, tidying up conference rooms. No one called him by name. They just knew him as the janitor on the 30th floor. But while everyone else raced through million-dollar reports and high-stakes deals, Jordan noticed the small things. He noticed the little girl who always sat alone in the executive hallway, where light poured through the glass walls, cold and sterile as ice. She wore an oversized hoodie, hair loosely tied, clutching a worn-out doll. She didn't look at anyone, didn't speak. Her eyes stayed fixed on the floor, as if the world outside no longer held anything worth seeing. But those eyes? Jordan recognized them instantly. They were the eyes of a child who had lost a piece of her soul. The same look Ethan had in his final days. He shook his head, trying to push the memory away, and went back to his work. The fateful day. Thursday afternoon. 3 o'clock. The 30th floor lobby was nearly empty. Most employees had gone to the cafe or were locked away in meetings. Jordan was mopping the marble floor near the elevators when he heard it. A faint sound, buried beneath the hum of the air conditioner. Not a loud cry, but a muffled one, shaky, restrained, filled with despair. He froze, listened. The sound came from behind the last marble column at the end of the hall, a hidden corner with no security cameras where the light dimmed. He hesitated. He knew he wasn't supposed to interfere. A janitor didn't belong in the world up there. But that cry, it pulled something deep inside him. Memories of Ethan trembling through nightmares, whispering, "Daddy," in fear. Before he even realized it, Jordan's feet were already moving toward the sound. Behind the column, Isabel Pierce sat curled up, her knees pulled tight against her chest, face buried in her arms. Her small body shook, not from cold, but from pain that swallowed her whole. Jordan stopped, keeping a respectful 3-step distance. He said nothing. Then slowly, he knelt. His knees touched the cold marble, the sound dry and hollow in the silence. Isabel didn't look up, but her breathing changed, shorter, uneven. She could feel someone there. Jordan stayed quiet. He simply sat there beside her, motionless. 5 seconds, then 10, then longer. A gentle stillness filled the space between them. He set the mop aside, quietly reached into his pocket, and took out a small object, a teddy bear. He had sewn it the night before, using a scrap from his old sweater. Faded brown, clumsy stitches, one ear larger than the other. 2 button eyes, shiny yet sad. Jordan placed the bear on the floor, halfway between them. No words, no gestures. He just sat there, slightly leaning back, keeping the safe distance. No pressure, no demands. Only presence. Time seemed to stop. A minute. Then 2. Isabel slowly lifted her head. Her eyes were swollen, lashes stuck together with tears. She looked at the bear, then at the quiet man sitting across from her. Jordan didn't smile. He simply nodded once, gently, his eyes kind and calm as a breeze. The girl reached out, trembling, and touched the bear. Then she hugged it tight. The fabric was soft, warm, and it smelled like safety, like a person, like something long lost, but real. And for the first time in 3 months, Isabel stopped crying. Not because someone told her to stop, but because, at last, she felt allowed to be weak, to hurt, without being judged. Jordan stayed there, silent. He gave her time to breathe, to settle, to just be. After 5 minutes, he quietly stood, picked up his mop, and walked away, never once looking back. Up on the 30th floor, in an office surrounded by glass, Eleanor Pierce stared at the security footage. The image of a man in a blue uniform kneeling beside her daughter, saying nothing, just placing a clumsy little teddy bear on the floor, made her chest tighten painfully. She raised both hands to her mouth. Tears streamed down her face, dripping onto the keyboard. She had just witnessed a miracle. And the man who performed it was someone no one had cared to notice for the past 2 months. The next morning, Eleanor Pierce arrived at the office earlier than usual. She hadn't slept. The whole night, she'd sat watching that same security footage, again and again, dozens of times. That man, the janitor on the 30th floor. What had he done to Isabel? He hadn't spoken, hadn't touched her. He had simply sat there, quiet, simple, patient. And then Isabel stopped crying. Eleanor still couldn't understand it. How could a stranger, untrained, unqualified, do what 9 professionals had failed to do? She grabbed the phone, her voice urgent. "I need information on the janitor from the 30th floor. Male, mid-30s to 40. Brown hair." The HR manager's voice crackled through the speaker. "You must mean Jordan Blackwell. He's with Clean Corp, an outsourced contractor. I want his file." Now, an hour later, the file appeared on her screen. Name, Jordan Blackwell, 38. Address, Queens Education. Bachelor's in Early Childhood Education, Brooklyn College. Previous occupation, preschool teacher, Little Bright Stars School, 2012 to 2018. Reason for leaving, not specified current job, janitor, Clean Corp Solutions, 2020 to present. Eleanor frowned. A preschool teacher turned janitor? Something didn't add up. She typed quickly, sending a message to a private investigation firm. "I need everything you can find on this man." That afternoon, something unexpected happened. Isabel Pierce, the child who hadn't left her private room in 3 months, opened the door and walked out. No one told her to. No one begged. She simply held her teddy bear and walked. She didn't take the elevator. She was still afraid of enclosed spaces. She walked down the stairs, one slow step at a time, as if afraid the fragile magic holding her together might shatter if she moved too fast. In the downstairs lounge, Jordan was wiping the coffee tables, his movements steady, patient, as if he were polishing away his own sadness. Isabel stood about 5 meters away, hugging the bear tightly. Jordan sensed something. He turned around. Their eyes met. 3 seconds of silence. Then Isabel walked closer, slowly, and sat down on the floor, 3 steps away. Jordan said nothing. He kept cleaning. 5 minutes later, he set the cloth aside and sat down, closing the distance to just 2 steps. From his shirt pocket, he took out a plastic bottle cap. He placed it gently on the floor between them. And with a low, calm storyteller's voice, he began, "Once upon a time, there was a tiny bottle cap. Everyone threw it away because they thought it had no value. But the cap didn't feel sad, because it knew a secret. Isabel's eyes widened. She listened closely. "What secret?" she whispered, her voice shaky and rough from disuse. Jordan looked up, surprised. It was the first time he'd heard her speak. He smiled softly and said, "The cap knew that its worth wasn't about how others saw it, but how it saw itself." Isabel clutched her bear tighter. "Was the cap sad?" Jordan paused. Such a simple question, yet it pierced straight through him. He took a slow breath and nodded. "Yes, the cap was very sad. But then it met a friend. And that friend showed it, that being sad doesn't mean you're weak." The girl looked down, her voice barely audible. "Are you sad too?" He smiled faintly, though pain shimmered behind his eyes. "I used to be very sad, and sometimes I still am." "Why?" "Because I lost someone very important." She looked up, whispering, "I lost my dad too." Jordan's heart clenched. He met her eyes and said quietly, "I know. And I'm so sorry." Then they sat there in silence. No more words were needed. Two souls, one man who had lost his child and one little girl who had lost her father, sat side by side, sharing their pain in quiet understanding. Not through language, but through empathy. Up on the 30th floor, Eleanor Pierce watched the security feed, tears streaming down her face. Her daughter was talking, for the first time in 3 months. And she was talking to the man everyone in the building had dismissed as invisible. Eleanor didn't know what to feel: relief, envy, or gratitude. Perhaps all three at once. That night, in his small apartment in Queens, Jordan opened the door to the old room. Moonlight spilled across the photos of Ethan. He sat down and spoke softly, as if his son could still hear him. "Hey, buddy, I met a little girl today. She's a lot like you. She's hurting, too." He smiled faintly, his eyes glistening. "I don't know if I can help her. I couldn't even save you. But when I looked into her eyes, I saw you. And I thought, maybe this is how I get to start again. Not to replace you, but to let you live on, through what I can still give." Jordan leaned his head back against the wall. Outside, the distant rumble of the subway echoed through the night. And for the first time in 6 years, he felt he had a reason to keep living. In the days that followed, the halls of Pierce Global Dynamics began to witness something extraordinary. Every day at exactly 3 p.m., little Isabel Pierce appeared in the ground floor lobby, a place no one had ever imagined she'd set foot in again. She sat beside the janitor from the 30th floor, Jordan Blackwell. They didn't talk much. She simply listened. Jordan told her stories built from the smallest, most ordinary things. A plastic spoon that turned into a princess. A paper cup that became a castle. A cleaning rag that became an ocean. No expensive toys. No high-tech therapy rooms. Just imagination. And someone who knew how to listen. Gradually, the office workers began to notice. They passed by, glanced over, then smiled softly. No one dared to interrupt, afraid to break whatever fragile magic was unfolding before them. The only one brave enough to approach was Mrs. Rosa, the warm-hearted round cafe manager from Mexico, 55 years old, with a kind smile. From that day on, she left a cup of hot chocolate on the table every afternoon. "Para la niña," she whispered to Jordan, smiling gently. "For the little girl." One afternoon, Jordan told a story about a turtle that couldn't swim. "Once upon a time," he began, "there was a turtle who couldn't swim. All the other turtles could, but not this one. Every time it went into the water, it sank." Isabel tilted her head and asked quietly, "Why couldn't it swim?" "Because it was afraid," Jordan said. It almost drowned once. So what did it do? It stopped trying to swim, he replied. Instead, it learned how to walk on the ocean floor. Isabel frowned, her little brow creasing. But it can't breathe underwater. Jordan smiled, soft, calm, and steady as the wind. That's true. But it found a way. It rested in the caves where air bubbles stayed. It learned to live with its fear, instead of giving up. She was quiet for a moment, then whispered, "Was the turtle happy?" "Not always," Jordan said gently, "but it kept living. And one day, it met another turtle, who also couldn't swim. And they walked together." Isabel nodded slowly. Her lips trembled. "I'm the turtle that can't swim." Jordan looked at her, his eyes tender and deep. "So am I." And in that moment, two broken souls, one child, one man, found each other in the vast ocean of pain. Friday. Eleanor Pierce decided to meet the man herself. She stepped out of the elevator, her high heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Jordan was cleaning the glass wall, his reflection flickering in it. "Mr. Blackwell." Jordan turned, startled. He recognized her instantly. Eleanor Pierce, the CEO, Isabel's mother. "Yes, ma'am." Eleanor approached, her eyes sharp yet softer than they'd ever been on television. "How long have you worked here?" 2 months, ma'am." "Do you know who Isabel is?" "Yes," he said after a pause. "Your daughter. And you've helped her?" Her tone wasn't questioning. It was a statement. Jordan didn't know how to respond. He remained silent. She continued, her voice trembling slightly. "For 3 months, I've hired 8 nannies and 9 therapists. Spent over $300,000. None of them could reach her, and you, with just a teddy bear. Did the impossible." Jordan bowed his head modestly. "You're giving me too much credit." "You used to be a teacher," Eleanor interrupted. Jordan froze. Eleanor met his eyes. "I checked your records. You have a degree in early childhood education. You taught for 5 years, then quit. Why?" He gripped the handle of his mop tighter, eyes fixed on the floor. "That's personal, ma'am." "I have a right to know," she insisted. "You're interacting with my daughter." "I haven't done anything wrong." "I know," she said softly, "but I need to understand. Why would a teacher become a janitor? And how did you help Isabel when no one else could?" A long silence. Then Jordan looked up, his voice low but steady. "Because I know how she feels." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I lost a child once." Eleanor froze. The air between them seemed to solidify. "You lost your child?" Jordan nodded, saying nothing more. Eleanor stared at him for a long time. For the first time, her eyes weren't those of a CEO, but of a mother looking at a father who had lived through her greatest fear. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "It's all right," Jordan said quietly. "It was a long time ago." "But the pain, it never really goes away, does it?" "No," he said softly. "It just becomes part of who we are." They stood there in silence, not as boss and employee, but as two people who had both lost something irreplaceable. Eleanor drew a deep breath and said gently, "Would you keep helping Isabel? Not as a janitor, but as a friend. Someone she trusts." Jordan looked up, surprised. "You're asking me to—" "Stay," Eleanor said firmly. "I'll pay you. Whatever salary you want." Jordan shook his head, a faint smile appearing on his lips. "I'm not doing this for money." "Then what for?" He turned toward the cafe, where Isabel sat holding a cup of hot chocolate, a small smile on her face. "Because, maybe, this is how my son would want me to keep living." Afternoon light streamed through the glass, reflecting the image of three people, each carrying their own wounds, yet beginning a journey of healing together. No drama, no spectacle, just understanding. And kindness, the kind that sometimes is the only real miracle. 3 days later, the investigative report landed on Eleanor Pierce's desk. She sat in her office, the glow of the monitor highlighting her tired face, the papers trembling slightly in her hands. Jordan Blackwell, complete file, married to Sarah Mitchell, 2013. One son, Ethan Blackwell, born the same year. October 15, 2018. Severe traffic collision. Sarah was driving their son home when her car was struck by a truck at the Flatbush Avenue intersection. Sarah survived. Mild brain injury, fractured ribs. Ethan, age 5, died 3 hours later at the hospital. Eleanor covered her mouth, her breath catching. Tears welled in her eyes as she read on. After the accident, Jordan Blackwell requested indefinite leave. Never returned to teaching. Sarah Mitchell admitted twice to psychiatric care for major depression and suicidal intent. In April 2019, she left home without leaving an address. Jordan relocated to Queens, living alone. No criminal record, no debts. Neighbors said, "Quiet man. He sits in the park, watches the kids play, but never goes near them." Eleanor closed the file, her heart heavy. Now she understood. Jordan wasn't just a man who happened to help Isabel. He was a father trying to save another child, because he couldn't save his own. That afternoon, Eleanor summoned Jordan to her office. Not the main boardroom, but a smaller, warmer space she used when she wanted to escape the cold world of numbers and negotiations. Jordan entered, uneasy. "Sit down," Eleanor said, motioning to the chair across from her. He sat, back straight, hands folded stiffly on his knees. Eleanor slid the folder across the desk. "I know about Ethan." Jordan froze. His knuckles turned white. She continued, her voice soft but steady. "I'm sorry." No father deserves to endure that. Jordan said nothing. His jaw trembled slightly. Eleanor took a breath, her voice breaking. "I lost my husband 3 months ago. Plane crash. He was on his way home. Isabel and I were waiting at the airport." Her words faltered. Then the phone rang. They said the plane went down. No survivors. Jordan looked up, eyes warm and sincere. "I'm so sorry," he said quietly. "Thank you," Eleanor nodded. "But I wanted to tell you this. I understand your pain. And I think you understand Isabel's." Jordan's voice grew low, thoughtful. "She feels like part of her died. And nothing can fill that space." Eleanor nodded, tears shimmering. "Yes, but you did what no one else could. You made her feel allowed, to hurt, to cry, to remember." Jordan exhaled slowly. "That's all I ever wished someone had told me. After Ethan died, everyone said, 'Be strong. Move on.' But I didn't want to move on. I wanted to grieve. I wanted to remember him." Eleanor wiped her eyes gently. "You still make toys for Ethan, don't you?" Jordan looked surprised. "How do you know?" "I noticed. Every toy you've given Isabel, handmade, sewn with care, and love." Jordan smiled faintly, the sadness in it unmistakable. "Yes, I make one every night, so I can feel like he's still here somewhere. And now you give them to Isabel. Maybe that's what Ethan would want. Maybe that's how he still helps other children, through me." Eleanor stood and walked to the window. Afternoon light fell softly across her tired but gentle face. "Jordan, I'd like to ask you something. Not for the company. For my daughter." Jordan looked up. "What is it you want me to do?" "Stay. Not as a janitor. As Isabel's friend. Someone she can trust." He hesitated, then spoke quietly. But I'm not a therapist. I have no credentials. You have something no degree can teach. Heart. And understanding what will people say. I don't care what they say, Eleanor replied firmly. I care about my daughter. And for the first time in 3 months, she smiled. Because of you. Jordan sat in silence for a long moment. Then he nodded. I'll stay. But on one condition. What condition? I don't want Isabel to think I'm replacing her father. I'm just a friend. Someone who listens. Eleanor smiled softly and nodded. That's exactly what I want too. And about Ethan. Please, let's keep that between us. I promise. Jordan stood and extended his hand. Eleanor took it. Not the handshake of a CEO and her employee, but of 2 people learning to live again after loss. But there was someone else who knew. Isabel. She was more perceptive than anyone realized. One afternoon, as Jordan was telling a story, she suddenly asked, Mr. Jordan, do you have a child? Jordan froze. His heart thudded. Why do you ask? Because you tell stories just like my dad. He told them the same way. Jordan swallowed hard, voice trembling. I used to. Where is your child? He's not here anymore. Like my dad? Yes, like your dad. Isabel was quiet for a while, then placed her tiny hand over his. Are you sad? Jordan smiled sadly, eyes glistening. Every day. Me too. Every day I miss my dad. Their hands, one big, one small, clasped tightly together. No more words were needed. What was your child's name? Isabel asked. Ethan. Did he like your stories? He loved them? Then when you tell them to me, he's listening too, right? Jordan's throat tightened. He could barely speak. He simply nodded. Isabel hugged her teddy bear and whispered, Then I'll listen carefully. For me, and for Ethan. And at that moment, Jordan wept. For the first time in 6 years, he cried in front of a child. Not from pain, but because, at last, he had begun to heal. Rumors spread through Pierce Global Dynamics like wildfire. By mid-morning, everyone had heard the same story. The CEO hired a janitor to care for her daughter. It didn't take long for the board of directors to call an emergency meeting. 40th floor. The air inside the conference room was tight as a drawn bowstring. Victoria Chen, 58, silver hair neatly combed, a senior board member, stood up, her voice cool but measured. Eleanor, we've always respected you, but this decision, it's incomprehensible. Mr. Blackwell is a janitor. He has no psychological certification. If anything goes wrong, this company faces serious legal liability. Eleanor's tone stayed calm, her eyes locked on Victoria's. He helped my daughter. David Park, another member, interjected, Are you aware he lost a child? That could influence how he interacts with Isabel. Eleanor rose, her voice low but sharp as steel. I know exactly what happened to him. And that's precisely why he understands my daughter better than anyone. A few others started to speak, but Eleanor cut them off. That's enough. This is my decision. Anyone who disagrees is free to leave the table right now. Silence fell over the room. Victoria sighed, shaking her head. Eleanor, you're acting out of emotion, not logic. Eleanor met her gaze, her voice deep but unwavering. Emotion. For 3 months, my daughter hasn't spoken, hasn't smiled. She just stares into nothing. All your so-called experts have failed. Yet one man, no title, no degree, made her smile. So don't talk to me about logic. Logic can't save my child. No one said another word. A week later, the storm hit. The front page of the New York Tribune screamed a sensational headline. Billionaire Eleanor Pierce, Hires janitor to care for daughter. Scandal or desperation. The article spread like a virus. Sources inside Pierce Global Dynamics confirm that CEO Eleanor Pierce hired janitor Jordan Blackwell to accompany her daughter after the tragic death of her husband. Blackwell, 38, has no psychological credentials. He is a former preschool teacher who quit after a family tragedy. Is this an act of compassion or a mother's emotional breakdown? Within hours, social media exploded. Hashtags Eleanor Pierce and Jordan Blackwell climbed to the top of the trending list. Supporters wrote, "She's just a mother trying to save her child." You don't need a degree to heal, you need heart. Critics fired back. This is a scandal. She's blinded by emotion. That man could be dangerous. What do we really know about him? Eleanor said nothing publicly, but inside she knew. The storm was only beginning. 3 days later, the NYPD received an anonymous complaint. Jordan Blackwell is behaving suspiciously around a child. That afternoon, 2 police officers arrived at the Pierce Global headquarters. Jordan was in the ground floor cafe with Isabel, telling her a story about the singing paper boat, when a firm voice sounded behind him. "Mr. Jordan Blackwell?" He turned around slowly and nodded. "Yes?" "We need to speak with you for a moment." Isabel startled, her eyes wide. "Who are they, Uncle?" Jordan knelt slightly, trying to keep his voice calm. "It's all right, sweetheart. They just want to ask a few questions," but panic flashed across the girl's face. She clutched his hand tightly, tears welling. "No! They'll take you away, just like they took my dad." The cafe fell silent. Jordan knelt fully now, eye level with her, his voice gentle. "I promise, I'm not going anywhere." "Okay?" But the officers stepped closer. "I'm sorry, sir. You'll need to come with us for questioning." At that moment, another voice rang out, strong, commanding. "What's going on here?" "Eleanor Pierce." One of the officers turned. "Mrs. Pierce, we received a complaint and need to verify some information." "Complaint about what?" "I'm afraid that's confidential during investigation." Eleanor stepped forward, placing herself between Jordan and Isabel. "Mr. Blackwell works for me. If you want to ask questions, you'll go through Pierce Global's legal team." "Ma'am, we're just doing our job." "And I'm doing mine, protecting my employee. Without a court order, you have no right to take him." A tense silence filled the space. Finally, one officer murmured, "We'll be back." They turned and left. Isabel still clung to Jordan's hand. Eleanor looked at him, her eyes both firm and filled with empathy. That night, Jordan went to see Eleanor in her office. He was no longer composed. Worry clouded his face. "I think I should leave." Eleanor looked up. "No, I'm causing trouble for you. And for Isabel, you're helping her. That's all that matters." Jordan shook his head, voice breaking. "They won't stop, Eleanor. They'll dig into my past, about Ethan, about Sarah. And when they do, they'll turn me into a monster." Eleanor stepped closer, her tone steady, resolute. "Then we'll fight." "I don't want to fight," Jordan said, eyes red. "I just want Isabel to be safe. She won't be safe if you walk away." You know that Jordan said nothing. The soft yellow light glowed over both their faces. 2 people who had already lost everything, now standing on the edge of another battle. And in that quiet moment, he understood. Leaving was no longer an option. It was a Thursday night, when everything finally seemed to be settling back to normal. And then, in an instant, it all fell apart. Eleanor was still in her office, buried under reports and meeting schedules. The clock read 10 p.m. Her phone rang. It was Maria, the temporary nanny. "Mrs. Pierce!" "Isabel, she's gone." Eleanor froze, Her heart stopped mid-beat. What did you just say? She was in her room. I just went to the kitchen to grab some water. A few minutes, I swear. When I came back, the room was empty. She's gone. The phone slipped from Eleanor's hand and hit the desk. In that moment, she wasn't the powerful CEO of Pierce Global Dynamics anymore. She was just a mother in sheer panic. She called security, the police, activated the entire building's emergency alert. But before doing any of that, she dialed one number first. Jordan. Isabel's missing. Jordan answered the call while driving home. The second he heard the words, "missing child," he slammed the brakes so hard the tires screeched across the asphalt. How long has it been? About 30 minutes. Was she carrying anything? Just her teddy bear and her sketchbook. That was all he needed to hear. Jordan already knew where she was. The old Pierce Global headquarters, the building where Richard Pierce, Eleanor's late husband, once worked, had been abandoned for 2 years. Long ago, Isabel had asked Jordan a question. "Uncle Jordan, where did my dad used to work?" "At the old building, near the park." "I want to go there someday. That's where his memories are, right?" He had smiled back then, never imagining that one simple memory would lead him to tonight. He sped through the quiet streets until the silhouette of the old tower appeared, its rusted metal sign still faintly reading Pierce Global Headquarters under the pale streetlight. The main entrance was locked, but Jordan knew another way. The side door, the one janitors once used. He slipped in with an old key. The building was pitch black. "Isabel, where are you?" No answer, only his own echo bouncing off the cold marble walls. He climbed. 3rd floor, 4th, and then, on the 5th, Richard's old office. He saw it, a faint glow beneath the door. Jordan pushed it open. In the corner of the room, Isabel sat curled up, clutching her teddy bear under the beam of a small flashlight. Her cheeks were streaked with tears. "Isabel." She looked up, voice trembling. "Uncle Jordan." He ran to her, dropped to his knees, and pulled her into his arms. "You scared me half to death." "Why did you run away?" Through sobs, she whispered, "I just wanted to find my dad." "Here? You came here to find him?" Isabel nodded, eyes glistening. "This is where he worked. I thought, if I came here, I'd feel closer to him." Jordan held her tighter. "But you know he's not here anymore." "I know, but I miss him so much. I want to hear his voice again. I want him to hold me." Her voice broke into quiet sobs. "I don't want to forget him, Uncle Jordan." Jordan lifted her chin gently, meeting her eyes, those same hazel eyes that mirrored Eleanor's, and maybe Richard's too. "You'll never forget him. He's in you, every single day. But what if one day I forget what he looks like?" Jordan smiled faintly, his voice as soft as a lullaby. "Then look in the mirror. You have his eyes, his smile, and his heart. Every time you see yourself, he's right there, looking back at you." Isabel burst into tears, wrapping her arms tightly around him. "But I want him here." "I want him to tell me stories." Again Jordan held her close, gently rocking her. "I know. I want my son here too. Every single day, and there, in the darkened halls of a forgotten building, 2 souls, both broken by loss, found solace in each other." The sound of heels echoed down the hallway, followed by the beam of flashlights. Eleanor appeared in the doorway, flanked by security and police officers. The moment she saw Isabel in Jordan's arms, she raised a trembling hand. "Stop," she said softly. Everyone froze. "Isabel." The little girl turned around, her eyes still wet. "Mom." Eleanor rushed forward, dropped to her knees, and held her tight. "You scared me to death, sweetheart." "Where did you go?" "I'm sorry, Mom. I just wanted to find Dad tears spilled down Eleanor's cheeks. I know, baby. I know. I've been looking for him too. Every single day. Isabel looked up, then turned toward Jordan. But I don't have Dad anymore. I only have Mom. And Uncle Jordan. For a long second, Eleanor looked at Jordan, her eyes filled with gratitude, exhaustion, and something deeper. Thank you. Thank you for finding her. Jordan shook his head, voice trembling. I didn't find her, ma'am. She found me from the very beginning. And there, in that old, dust-covered office, among the ruins of an empire and the ghosts of memory, 3 people stood together at last. A mother, a father, and a child. Not bound by blood, but by the kind of pain that, when shared, becomes love. After the night Isabel disappeared, Eleanor Pierce knew she couldn't stay silent any longer. She called a press conference, and that morning, before a room packed with hundreds of reporters and flashing cameras, the CEO of Pierce Global Dynamics stepped up to the podium. Her voice calm, steady, but resolute. My name is Eleanor Pierce, and today I want to talk about my daughter. The room fell utterly silent. 3 months ago, I lost my husband, and my daughter lost her father. That kind of pain can't be put into words. I tried everything to help Isabel, hired the best specialists, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. Nothing worked, until I met Jordan Blackwell. She paused, letting the silence settle, her gaze locked on the rows of cameras before her. He's not a doctor. He's not a therapist. He's simply someone who's felt the same pain my daughter feels. And there are things no classroom can teach. A reporter raised a hand. Mrs. Pierce, aren't you worried about your daughter's safety? Eleanor took a deep breath, her voice unwavering. My daughter is safer than she's ever been. Not because he has a certificate, but because he has a heart. And if this world keeps valuing credentials over compassion, maybe we're the ones who need healing. The room stayed frozen in silence. The only sound left was the relentless clicking of cameras, capturing the image of a mother unafraid to show both her vulnerability and her strength. 1 week later, Eleanor announced a new initiative, Ethan's Light, a free program for children coping with grief, trauma, or loss. No degrees required, only a heart willing to listen. She asked Jordan Blackwell to lead it. He refused at first. I'm not a leader. You're the only one who can do this, Eleanor replied. You understand these kids. You know how to make them feel seen and heard. I've never run a program before. Eleanor smiled softly. Then we'll learn together. Jordan finally agreed, but on one condition. It has to be called Ethan's Light, so my son can still be part of it, in his own way. Eleanor nodded gently. Agreed. A month later, Ethan's Light opened on the ground floor of Pierce Global's new headquarters. No glass conference rooms, no luxury decor. Just a warm, cozy space. Thick rugs, golden light, shelves filled with handmade toys. On the main wall hung a photo of Ethan, smiling wide, his front tooth missing. Beneath it, a line of words read, Sometimes the brightest light comes from the smallest hearts. During the first week, only 3 children showed up. A 6-year-old boy who'd lost his mother to cancer. An 8-year-old girl caught between 2 homes after her parents' divorce. A 9-year-old boy bullied daily at school. Jordan sat with them. He didn't teach. He didn't preach. He simply listened. Then he told a story. Not from a book, from the heart. Once upon a time, there was a little star. It wasn't as bright as the others, so it thought it was useless. But one night, a lost child wandered into the forest, and the star's faint light was enough to guide the child home. From that night on, the star realized our worth isn't measured by how brightly we shine, but by who we shine for. The children listened, eyes wide, breaths still, as if the world outside had vanished. And in the corner of the room, Isabel sat beside a new girl, holding her hand. "It's okay," Isabel whispered. "Mr. Jordan will help you. He helped me too." That evening, after all the children had gone, Jordan and Eleanor stayed behind in the quiet room. The city glittered through the glass beyond them, distant, peaceful. Eleanor looked up at Ethan's picture and asked softly, "Do you ever regret it?" "Regret what?" "Staying." Opening up again, Jordan was silent for a moment, his eyes still on the photo. "No. At first, I thought I didn't deserve to be happy again. But Isabel taught me something, that loving again doesn't mean forgetting." Eleanor nodded slowly, smiling through her tears. "I've learned that too." "From you," Jordan chuckled lightly. "I didn't do anything." "You did," Eleanor whispered. "You showed me that strength isn't about never falling apart. It's about getting back up and helping someone else stand with you." They sat there for a long time. No words, no need. That silence itself was peace, the kind both had been searching for all along. Saturday evening. Jordan stopped by Eleanor and Isabel's home, no longer a high-rise penthouse, but a small, warm apartment in Brooklyn. "I wanted to start over," Eleanor had once said. Isabel opened the door, beaming. "Uncle Jordan? You're here." She tugged him inside, leading the way to the kitchen. The table was neatly set, no lavish dishes, just pasta, salad, and toasted bread. "I made it myself," she declared proudly. "You did?" "It smells amazing." Jordan laughed. "Mom only helped a little. I did the rest." Eleanor watched them, a strange warmth blooming inside, the kind she thought she'd lost forever the day Richard died. During dinner, Isabel talked excitedly about Ethan's light. "A new boy came today." He was really sad. But when Uncle Jordan told his story, he smiled. "Mom?" Eleanor looked at her daughter, then at Jordan. Her voice softened. "Thank you." "For what?" "For giving my daughter back to me." Jordan shook his head gently. "No, ma'am. She was never lost. I just helped you see her again." After dinner, Isabel pulled Jordan into her room. She pointed to a large drawing taped to the wall, colorful, clumsy, but full of heart. 4 figures stood together. A tall man, Richard, a woman, Eleanor, a little girl, Isabel, and another man, Jordan. Beside Jordan stood a small boy holding his hand. "That's Ethan," Isabel said with a shy smile. "I drew him here so he wouldn't feel lonely." Jordan went still, speechless. He knelt and hugged her tight, tears streaming down. But this time, they weren't from grief. They were gratitude. "Thank you, Isabel. Thank you so much." In that small, softly lit room, where past and present quietly met, they didn't just find each other again. They found themselves. Because sometimes healing doesn't begin with forgetting. It begins when you dare to love again. 1 year later. Ethan's light was no longer just a small room in the lobby. It had grown into 10 centers across the city, reaching more than 200 children and dozens of volunteers. Not professionals with fancy titles, but people who had known pain and chose to stay, to help others find their way out of the dark. And among them, Jordan Blackwell was no longer the invisible man. He had become a mentor, a guide, a quiet light, and above all, a father. Not by blood, but by heart. At the anniversary celebration, Jordan was invited to speak. He stood before hundreds, Children, parents, volunteers, even the journalists who once doubted him. His hands trembled slightly. "I'm not a great speaker," he began softly. "I'm just a father who once lost his child." The hall fell still. You could hear the breath of the crowd. 6 years ago, I lost Ethan, my son, 5 years old, in a car accident. At that time, I thought that was the end of fatherhood, the end of every kind of love I knew. His eyes drifted to the front row, where Isabel sat beside Eleanor, holding her mother's hand, beaming up at him. But then, a little girl showed me that love never really ends. It only changes form. Ethan isn't here anymore, but he lives in every story I tell, in every child I help, in every smile I see. His voice broke slightly. And that's why Ethan's light isn't just for children who are hurting. It's for the grown-ups, too. The ones who've forgotten that we can still love, even after our hearts have been broken. When he bowed his head, the whole room rose to its feet. Applause thundered, echoing through the hall. And Isabel ran onto the stage, throwing her arms around him. "I love you, Uncle Jordan." He hugged her tightly, tears glistening. "I love you too, Isabel." After the ceremony, Eleanor and Jordan stood together on the rooftop terrace, looking out over the glittering night skyline of New York. A soft breeze carried the faint scent of rain. Eleanor spoke quietly. "Can you believe it? A year ago, I was a desperate mother. And you were the invisible man?" Jordan smiled. "And now?" She turned to him, her eyes gentle. "Now, we're a family." Jordan blinked, unsure he'd heard right. "A family?" Eleanor nodded, her voice warm. "Isabel sees you as her second father. And I see you as a friend, a brother, a piece of our lives I didn't know we needed." Jordan looked down at his hands, a small smile forming. "I never thought I'd get a second chance. But that little girl, Isabel, she saved me." "And you saved her," Eleanor said softly, touching his hand. They stood there in silence, watching the city lights shimmer below. Two people who had once lost everything, finally finding peace. Eleanor asked, "Jordan, do you ever think about the future?" "Why do you ask?" "Because I want you to stay. Not just with the program, but with us. With Isabel. With me." Jordan turned, surprised. "Are you saying—" She smiled before he could finish. "I'm not talking about romance, Jordan. I'm talking about family. The kind made from souls once broken, who still choose to love. Not perfect." But real Jordan looked at her for a long time, then nodded slowly. "I want that too. I'm just afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Of losing again." Eleanor squeezed his hand. "Then we'll be afraid together. And heal together." For the first time in 6 years, Jordan's heart no longer felt empty. Sunday morning. Central Park. Isabel was on the swing set, Eleanor gently pushing her. Jordan sat on a nearby bench, smiling softly as he watched. Beside him lay a photo album, pictures of Ethan grinning with his missing tooth, pictures of Isabel, her hair blowing in the wind, and one photo of all three of them together. Eleanor, Isabel, and Jordan. Not a traditional family, but one built from love, not replacement, but continuation. "Uncle Jordan, come push me," Isabel called out. He laughed, getting up. "All right, princess." "Your turn." Laughter filled the morning air. Eleanor watched them, tears falling silently. Not of sorrow, but of joy. Sometimes miracles don't come from experts. They come from ordinary people, people who understand pain because they've lived it. Jordan Blackwell wasn't a hero. He was simply a father who lost his son. But through that loss, he found another child. not to replace Ethan, but to honor him. And Isabel, the girl no one could reach, now runs, laughs, and lives. Because someone saw her, sat beside her, and didn't try to fix her. He simply stayed, quiet, patient, loving. That's the real miracle. Not healing completely, but learning to live with the wound. Together today, Ethan's Light operates in more than 30 cities, helping over 5,000 children and families. If you, or someone you know, is living through loss, remember, you are not alone, and the light is still there. The sun dipped low over the park. Isabel's laughter echoed as the swing rose higher, while Jordan and Eleanor sat side by side, silent, peaceful, needing no more words. The story ends, but the healing continues. Because within each of us, there is an Ethan's Light, a small flicker that may lose its way, but still has the power to guide someone home. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment below. What moment made your heart tremble the most? I read every comment like letters from strangers who somehow feel close. And if you want to keep walking with stories of loss, courage, and healing, don't forget, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story. Turn on notifications, because maybe the next story will be yours.